with me, I was the agent on the team. I was a top producer on a team. So I felt it from like that side of things. And that's really what's helped me grow this whole thing. I think of it from the top producing agent within the team. What would I want to do?
What are some of the pointers, I guess, to tell, and maybe this is going a little off topic, but I think it's important to understand what are some indicators from body language or from speaking to someone that you can tell they'll culturally align with your values in a team? Or is it something that you have to actually experience and learn? It's not something you can share and explain.
So with Matthew, for instance, I never went into any of his muscle testing courses. I was always able to like feel and experience things in a good way. So I will say, and the reason why Alex came to that versus me, I never cared to learn how to teach or anything around it. I was more of a student in regards to that. And then where I spend my time is in sales processes and getting agents, to do what they're supposed to be doing. So I will say I'm not 100% clear on how to like teach or give pointers on that. But what I would ask is, when she became the hell no, what triggered the hell no? And were there warning signs before that you missed because of her high I in her DISC profile that made you instantly connect and build rapport?
So the DISC personality test, like I know what each one means, but based off of personality style, that's what amiable, expressive, driver, analytical. We were always taught that amiables would be really good salespeople because they care about the process. The girl was just too scared to do anything. So her fear of failure just actually made her fail in general. And she seemed like a really good girl, this, that, and the other. And we said, hey, we're going to teach you everything from scratch. So forget everything you learned from the past. And then she came in there and then we would be coaching. John and I would be spending an hour in the morning going through systems, processes, scripts. And she'd be like, my old team, we used to do the LP Mama. And we were like, shut up. And, then, and it was just like, it was frustrating because she was trying to share things just to share things because she wanted to help. But it was completely what we didn't want. That was the red flags that came up right after. Her coming from a place of wanting to help, contribution, but it was completely wrong information that she was sharing with the team.
Yeah, and I think that too is like, again, that's on Alex's test too. It goes beyond DISC. It goes to the DEX aspect of things, and there's a high theoretical component too, which means that like they often consume information just to consume information, and then also too, it's like she's hiding behind that in order to not take action. So if we're going back to, I'm going to throw things out in that interview process to see if she shakes at the idea of prospecting all day. I mean, you can literally. I invite people in to go meet with Eric Eckhart in the office and go sit next to him and see what his day looks like so that they can experience it before they make that decision.
Smart.
It's a little more than like gut, but I'm putting them through like things and seeing where do they, like, are you 2 minutes late to my interview?
Yeah.
That annoys the shit out. You better have a really good reason for that, because that's the beginning of like a problem if they don't plan ahead, in the right way. And that too is something that's come back to bite me. So a lot of little things like measurables around that. There's non-negotiables. I used to be pretty hard where I'd be like, all right, cool. You missed the interview. We're not even talking. I'll reschedule. I'll give them a second shot at this point, but they have an uphill battle from that if they do little things like that. So yeah, I would just come in with us, come prospect with us. I want you to see what it looks like. Here's your headset. You want the person that's going to be scared. You're going to be scared. It's 1,000% true. Yeah. But they'll sit there and they'll move through their fear. I mean, to go back to old books, I forget who, I don't know if it was Mark Twain or whatever. It was one of those older guys, but he was saying, do something every day that makes you uncomfortable. And that's exactly what you really want to be looking at. My whole thing is, if you create discomfort long enough, you don't feel discomfort anymore. Yeah. Like, you guys don't think about it when you're throwing your headsets on anymore and hitting the phones in the morning because it's just what you do.
Yeah, I was going to say. We used to have to take a shot before, or I would at least take 2 or 3 shots before the first few episodes, because I was like, oh man, I don't want to screw up that intro, or I got to make sure all my questions are jotted down and written out, and everything's mapped out, and we got to make sure we do it this way. And of course, because it was uncomfortable, and now it's a hell of a lot more comfortable. But now you have to do something else that feels uncomfortable. Yeah. So
one thing you were saying earlier, even it was, one of the things that you do mistakes, or the mistake you keep repeating, is focusing on lower income activities. One of the things that drove us crazy was having to train an agent instead of creating those systems that we learned that would help them understand part of the process that we can automate and get off our hands, like a LMS system and stuff like that. How did you handle that discrepancy from getting out of personal production and focusing on building these 2 guys that came on? And what was that like for you?
It's not easy. You have to put the time that you put into with scripts, with role play, with all of that stuff into systems and processes. And, I was on Trainual was what, John, I want to say I've given you the login info for it at one point in time, but I was on Trainual for a long period of time, and then we realized that it was too text heavy and that a video component would be better. And now we have Chat GPT with, creating some content in there as a filler. And then it's very interesting, like how much it's evolved over time. And what's great for us with the AI component is normally I'd go shoot, and you guys, you're sitting in a studio right now, what it costs to go into scenarios like that. And we would shoot video for our new Thinkific that we were using and try to make the agent experience better. And then we realized we had to go back, hire that videographer again, try to go back into that same studio we're in, shoot it with the same lighting so that it flows with everything. And then that's when we realized that Synthesia, is just much better for that, because if we're tweaking stats or data to be relevant, we just go back in and retype a little thing here and there, and then the new video gets spit out and it goes into our training. So from the onboarding process and bringing people through the organization, every agent, regardless of what level they're at, we do bring them through because we want them to understand where everything is. We might go a little faster with certain people, but we've gone from like more of a hell week through Trainual, where you consume all the information and then we start picking you up from there, to more of a, we're going to hold your hand a little bit more with daily accountability as you're learning a little bit at a time, and then get you out of it and up and running, after 3 or 4 weeks. So, but yeah, to kind of, answer that question, that the only shift is that you just have to become masterful at a completely new world. Yeah. And what we're doing right now with, we have a performance coach in too. It's a lot of like cool things have been happening recently. We've got a lot more corporate with the trainings and the processes that we're using around things. So that's kind of where my journey's gone from leaving production. I'm less focused on what a condo's worth in Hoboken, for instance, and more focused on how to get an agent to earn $100,000 a year in the least amount of time and get my percentages up as high as possible. It's the same thing. It's like I'm collecting data to work on conversion. It's just my client became the agent.
When you were just starting in 2016, 2017, how was it when, like, the training, when you have such a small, tight-knit team and you don't have those systems and processes, like, that's the most painful part, I can imagine, in trying to actually build out so you can actually focus on your production while you're building out the team simultaneously. How did you break through that?
Yeah, that was really hard. That was hard for 2 years or so. Those were 70-hour weeks. Those were really, not doing much on the vacation front or anything like that. So that was like kind of my push. It was like 2016 to that was when I was trying to get to the point where I could kind of disconnect and not be bothered by, by the team. But it's hard work. And I think, and you guys know that, it's like, that's the separation. I'll outwork anybody. I'll put the hours in. People don't understand that, like, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning to go finish tax return shit after being out to dinner with my wife the night before, and then going off to showings all day and still fielding questions from the team the whole time, coming back home, trying to go back out to dinner. And like, I feel like if you're not waking up at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday to do entrepreneurial crap when the world is quiet, then you're not really pushing the envelope hard enough. But yeah, it's 70, 80-hour work weeks, and you're still selling, I wasn't even selling a lot of homes compared to like a lot of people. I was 40, 50 homes a year when I was transitioning out. But I hear Matt Roack, who I just met with, I think said he was 180 homes before he started growing the team. So like, there's people doing some crazy things out there and mixing it in. That's really the key. It's hard work. You're gonna bust your ass. It's gonna suck.
I feel like thinking about it is painful.
Talk to us a little bit more about the attrition, right? Like, one of the biggest things that I think people recognize about your team is that when agents come there, they're staying there for a while and they're not leaving. What are some of the reasons you think those agents have been with you for so long?
I think that a lot of people are leading teams with the wrong intentions. And I think that a lot of people need to understand too, like, are you either going to be a team that, is a producing agent where the agents around them support them and they're essentially more of like an assistant kind of thing? Or do you want to grow a large team and then get out of production and like really help, like kind of more my style team? And either one is completely fine. But what I found is that what's really helped me is that my whole, like, everything that I do and everything that the agents feel throughout the organization is that we operate with integrity. We do what we say we're going to do. We use each other for accountability for that integrity. We don't screw each other over. I hate to say it, but there's been conflict within, agents within the team or something around splits because they didn't clearly negotiate up front. And I personally will take that on the chin versus having conflict in between the two of them, and we'll move forward from there. So I think that a lot of things like that, you take like an old school real estate agency, for instance, that they'll just go in and like kill their agents over $4,000. Like they'll literally, it's interesting to me. So it doesn't come up often, but it's just things like that. And then we bring in the right people so that it creates that culture, that vibe of, more of the racehorses on that side of things and just genuine people. And we've just been really fortunate to just have a great group of people, but I do focus in on that. And what I will say too is we try to push the agents to invite their friends, their family.
I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of our agents are cut from the same cloth because they've come in from other, folks that are already on the team, or they recruited them in and then, got into conversation with them around that too. But making the right hire really helps with the attrition on that side of things. And then also, I personally left the team because I kept hitting the ceiling within the team. So we give people opportunities. We have pod leaders. We have people kind of running teams within our team where the sky's the limit. And I think that also is the issue. Like people are so worried about my name being on something, or like you guys, Lighthouse, like that's perfect. Like having like not getting into that whole side of things. I don't claim things on the MLS. I see that too. I don't know. I apologize if you guys do, but like I know some agents that are like, you will never get a shout out. You'll never be this. You'll never be that. Everything's going in my name on the MLS. And I think that too, certainly upsets the agents and causes them to start looking elsewhere. And with me, I was the agent on the team. I was a top producer on a team. So I felt it from like that side of things. And that's really what's helped me grow this whole thing. I think of it from the top producing agent within the team. What would I want to do? Yesterday, somebody was asking me.
Yeah. So what are some ways, obviously attrition, as we talked about, is really important. It's been hugely successful for you because you've been able to keep these people for a long time. What are some ways that people can sort of build a team within a team? Like you were talking about pod leaders, and I know you refer to the pods. Just explain that to the people out there who don't understand, myself included.
Yeah, so what we found too is if you take like mega teams or you take like massive real estate teams are blitzing and scaling, a lot of times their profit margins are between like 5 and 10, maybe 15% if you're really good at it, 20% if you're the best of the best. So what we found is that, hey, if we can give somebody a 5% override, or we can incentivize them a little bit to help, train the agents and whatnot, but they don't have the risk of their own P&L and they're working within that world, it basically gets you to what you want at the end without having the risk of it. And then also too, there's downward pressure being created from like myself, for instance, because I too want those agents to produce underneath them. So there's accountability as well. So it's kind of like, I know the agents within my world can create more profit having their override within the agents on our team with everything that's happening around them and not having to worry about guessing with expenses and whatnot, versus going out on their own, not having me backing them and looking at them and making sure that they have that accountability, that right recruiting, that bringing the people through. And so far it's worked out, really well. We've got some good leaders in the group.
Yeah. The way you explain it too comes from a place of like, you actually care, right? Because of the fact that you had the entrepreneurial spirit, you took the risk, right? It worked out. And if the person wants to be an entrepreneur themselves, they can be an intrapreneur within your organization with the override, with none of the risk. And now you're basically saying, make as much as you want. The sky's the limit, but it's based on your effort as well, not only mine.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Well, it's also saying too, like, hey, if you think you could build a team, build it here. What do I have to do to keep you here? I'll keep you here. I'll back you. I'll take the risk of the expenses. Mm-hmm. And, obviously it benefits someone like a Brett too, just because they're taking over some of the training and some of the questions and how do I submit this offer and what do I do when somebody asks me this and that sort of thing.